Hi guys, Jodie Lang here, Director of Hopscotch Occupational Therapy. We're based in Melbourne, and so we're in stage 4 restrictions at the moment, and kids have been at home learning remotely for a really long time now. Parents have been working remotely mostly, and everyone is getting pretty exhausted at this stage, but still, remaining pretty positive. So we're working remotely too via telehealth and having lots of conversations with families who are supporting their kids at home. And one of the really common themes that is coming up is things going pretty well, we've got a routine established, everyone's adapting pretty well, except when it comes to handwriting. Handwriting is a real challenge to get my child to complete the task, to even start the task. Often when there's even a bit of discussion or looking at the task together, there can be some big behaviours, tantrums, avoidance, the whole lot. And I just wanted to talk to you today about why handwriting is so difficult for children, because I do believe that if you can understand what's happening for the child, then you're better able to support and help your child, but you're also better able to probably have a little bit more patience and a bit more understanding and empathy for your child if you can see where things are breaking down or where they're really struggling. So I wanted to go over why handwriting is such a challenging task and why it seems so much harder for some children. There is actually so much happening when a child is writing. There's so many skills that are being used, and so many skills that need to be developed in order for kids to be able to produce legible writing within a reasonable time frame, so with some speed. And that's what we would describe as automatic writing. When things are working well, when a child can think of their ideas, get them down legibly and fairly quickly, that's called automatic writing. All those processes, the underlying processes, the cognitive processes that are needed are working well, and the child has developed automatic writing. So what those processes are, so at a cognitive level, the child needs to be able to accurately recall a visual memory of what the letters look like. They also need to know how to form those letters. They need to remember where the letters sit on the lines, what direction the letter goes in, where it starts, where it stops, how tall it is, how small it is. They need to know the letter sound relationships. They need to know that really well for their spelling. And so if any of these processes aren't working well or aren't well developed, it can be really tough for the child to even write a word. And this is really only describing the mechanics of handwriting. This is describing the physical components or the visual motor components that are involved with writing. There's also a whole range of other physical components that might be happening at a body level. The child might have low muscle tone, so it might be hard for them to even maintain good posture at the table. But there's a whole range of other skills, cognitive skills that are involved in writing. So if we look at what might be kind of a regular task that's set, so say for a student in grade 1, they might be asked to do a comprehension task, read something, watch something, and then write 2-3 sentences, maybe answer some questions, or write about what sort of happened in what they've watched. For a child in grade 6, that might be reading something and then answering 10 questions, or writing a couple of paragraphs about how what they've watched or read has made them feel and think. So in these sorts of tasks, the child has to generate an idea of what they'll write. So they need to have those thoughts. They then need to plan and organise their ideas so that they make sense. Then when they get to the writing, they need to think about the spelling, the grammar, the sentence construction, punctuation, vocabulary. There might be a whole range of other kind of learning intentions there. They might be asked to just use emotion language. There might be sort of specific things the teacher's asking for there as well. And so now the child's really needing to think about, they really need to focus their attention on spelling, letter formations, spacing, punctuation, a whole range of things. And so often what will happen is the cognitive load is too high, particularly if they're struggling, say with letter formations and spelling. By the time they've written a word, the cognitive load is so high that they can't actually recall what their sentence was in the first place. And so often the focus on the content or the quality of the content really gets reduced. And the task can become overwhelming and just too difficult for the child. So it's really hard to keep motivated, to keep going, to start or to keep going or to finish a task when any of those aspects, the language, the written expression, the thinking of ideas and what you're going to write, or the mechanics, if any of those areas are sort of breaking down or not working very well for you, it is very hard to keep motivated. And so often what children do is they try to avoid the task because it's too hard. So a pretty clever strategy is to try and avoid doing it. And that might be in the form of tantrums, it might be, running off, silly behavior, things like that, anything to kind of avoid having to do this task that is just overwhelming. So how can we help kids when we're seeing this behavior or when we're noticing that any of the processes involved in writing are really not working well for your child? We obviously need the kids to keep practicing. We don't want them to avoid writing. They will improve, it will get easier, and they will learn through practice. But when you're at home and you've got your own work commitments and kids are working remotely, parents obviously have a big role in supporting kids through getting that practice and through finishing or having a go at the task. So some basic sort of things that you can do, or where you can start with that, is have a think about what is the real challenge for your child in writing. Is it that they're struggling with letter formations, that they're still not confident about which way the letters face, or where letters start, or how big or small they are? Are they struggling with spelling? Is it that they really get stuck on the spelling and they need some more support with that? Is it really difficult for them to remember the rules around grammar and punctuation? Is it difficult for them to form a sentence that makes sense? Is it hard for them to think of ideas in the first place? Is it difficult for them to keep those ideas in mind, to remember those ideas as they go along with their writing? And then I want you to consider how once you kind of have an idea of what area might be the most difficult for them, then you're in a better place to really think about what strategy might really assist them. So once you've got a bit of an idea of where your child might be struggling most, or what areas of the handwriting task are challenging for them, you're then in a better place to support your child and think about some strategies that you could put in place to make that aspect of the task easier for them. So I'll go over some of the commonly used kind of strategies that we would suggest or use with families when we're working with them one-to-one. So if your child's struggling with letter formations, so perhaps they're struggling remembering what the letters look like, for our younger kids, particularly those grade 2 and younger, they might still be developing that visual recall of what the letters look like. Having something like an alphabet strip there at their desk is a really helpful way just to give them a visual glance. Oh, which way does the B go again? Oh, I can just look on the strip and find it, copy it down. So you're taking away some of that challenge and difficulty in that visual recall. A strip like that also has the arrows which show you how the letters are formed. It might be that you're aware that your child's having trouble with just a couple of letters. So you might just have those few letters there on the table available to them. Your child might be struggling with things like grammar and punctuation. They might find it really hard to remember full stops and capital letters. That might be a focus again for those kids in the younger years and in the older years too. That might be a real goal for them or a focus for them. So you might use something like a really simple kind of checklist that you would have at your child's desk, and at the end of each sentence they can go ahead and check off if they have done those different things. This one's got spacing between words, full stops and capital letters. So you might get them to fix those things up. They might add in their full stop and their capital letter at the end. So instead of needing to remember that when they're busy focusing on what the sentence is, we can use a strategy like this to get them to add in these things at the end of the sentence. If spelling is a struggle for your child, you might talk to them first about what the sentence is, so get them to verbalize the sentence that they're going to write down first, and you might write any tricky words that you hear in that sentence. You might write those tricky words down on a whiteboard or a piece of paper next to them, so they've got those to refer to as they're going, so they're not having to get too stuck on the spelling, or it will speed up for them task completion because they're not having to stop and think about that too much. If your child's really struggling with the planning and organizing, thinking of ideas, remembering those ideas, and sort of working out a logical way to organize or to sequence their ideas, then you might use something like the Hamburger Planner. We use this all the time in sessions just as a strategy. Well, it's got a range of strategies within it. So this is just a little planner here for kids in sort of grade 1 doing recount writing about their weekend. And so with the Hamburger, we use this as a visual. It really helps with task completion, with organizing ideas, and also helping kids to recall their ideas. So we would have a discussion with the child first, tell me about your weekend, what happened, decide what we're going to write about. So for this child, they're writing about a bike ride. So the idea is that the burger bun is a graphic that they can remember, and so it's teaching them how to write a paragraph. So the first sentence is always introducing us to what they're writing about, the weekend. We're putting the detail in, 3 bits of detail in there about what they've done and what's happened. So that's the detail about the bike ride there. And then a finishing sentence at the end. They might plan that first, or we'll often leave that blank and they can read what they've got so far and then add that in at the end. And so this is really holding all the information for the child. So they've thought of their great ideas, but they don't have to worry about forgetting those as they're going, which often happens because they're all kept somewhere there. It's also helping them with some of the spelling of some of those tricky words. And it's getting their ideas organised in a good sequence there. So this is a really good strategy for kids. Probably we're often using this even from grade 1 onwards, but possibly more like grade 2 and up, when kids are up to writing paragraphs. And so you can use similar things, ideas at home. That idea, the Hamburger, is borrowed from a graphic organizer which understood.org produced, so I can put a link to that in the comments. And yeah, these are just a couple of ideas that we hope might help you in supporting your student with writing at home. Obviously, if you do have more concerns, really great to get in touch with your teacher and have a discussion with them. They will also have their own great strategies that they would commonly use in the classroom. And if you are aware that your child has handwriting challenges and they have worked with some professionals around that, then you might be aware of some certain sort of modifications or accommodations that have been recommended to your teacher. So they might be things like reducing the amount of work that the child has to complete. It might be around sort of, allocating more time, or using an adaptive sort of device, so using typing instead of writing. So if your child does have accommodations set for them and put in place at school, it is recommended that you follow those through at home as well. So if you're aware that your child does have accommodations in place, as the facilitator of the learning at home, you can help your child make some decisions around that. So it might be around, okay, the teacher's set 2 paragraphs in this to be completed in this piece of work, but as a facilitator and knowing that your child has some challenges, you might just talk to them about the fact that, okay, today our goal is to do 5 sentences or 1 paragraph instead of the 2, or it might be around, okay, we're going to, because this is a longer writing piece, we're going to give you double the amount of allocated time and remove another task from today's learning tasks, so that you have more time allocated to this one. Some really simple kind of strategies, but that will allow your child to engage a bit better and reduce some of the stress or the cognitive load that is being placed on them when one of these writing processes isn't working as efficiently. All right, we hope that's helpful, and we'd love you to share any of your great strategies that you might be using at home in the comments below. Thanks.